Good evening, witches, warlocks, sorcerers, adepts, friends, fans, family, and followers to Season 3, Episode 8 of the hit underground occult radio show known as Knights of the Nephilim, brought to you by Brutal Business and Celestial Oddities Radio, bringing you 100% real and raw underground entertainment. As always, I will be your host and guide on this obscure and mysterious journey into magic and mysticism, darkness and divination. I am Reverend Frater Crow of the Coterie of Samil Arcane Occult Order, and it's a pleasure to have you listening tonight. Whether you're listening live or you're streaming after the fact, or you've downloaded this for your device for on the go, I do want to thank you for your patronage and support. Just make sure you click the like, share, and follow button on whatever platform you're listening in from. Whether it be iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Deezer, Spreaker, CastBox, Google Play, Amazon Podcasts, or any of the other platforms in between that I might have missed, we air across everywhere. So as I said, listen where you feel comfortable, but by clicking those buttons, it moves us up the podcast community rankings, allows more people to discover the show, keeps you in the loop with new episodes as they air, and gives you unfiltered access to our past archives. And I can be the first to tell you that there's something for absolutely everyone out there. Whether it be this show here, Knights of the Nephilim, based upon esoteric science, occult doctrine, and ritual magic, interviewing and talking with the biggest and best names in the occult, from authors and practitioners to ritual toolmakers and theologians, there's something for everyone. If it's not this show, then we have a couple other shows for you. The Paranormal Guys podcast, also called The Pong, is a show that we deep dive into content matter of the supernatural and paranormal phenomena of the world, and bring on professionals within those fields, as well as do special episodes where we take on phone calls from around the world from listeners just like yourselves to hear your extraordinary encounters with the strange and unusual. Or it be our last show, Uncovering the Underground, where we talk with and interview artists from music to modeling, stars of the big screen, comedy, oddities, and everything in between. We try to bring you everything we can in the underground sense here at Brutal Business and Celestial Oddities Radio. So make sure you click those like, share, and follow buttons and get it out there. I really appreciate it. Now, folks, I do want to say if you missed any of our past episodes, not only of this season of Knights of the Nephilim, but our other shows right now that are currently running, which is the Celestial Oddities Paranormal Guys podcast. We stagger them each and every week, so you catch this show every other Thursday night, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And on the weeks in between, we have the other show going as well. Once these two shows come to an end for the season, Uncovering the Underground will pick back up in sometime, I believe, in January or February. I don't have the schedule in front of me. So there's always something coming for you each and every week. I air at least 50 weeks out of the 52 weeks a year, so I always am trying to keep you guys busy with content. Now, if you are listening out there, I have some things I would like you to check out. I won't touch base much on it this evening, but I feel it's important to touch base on it. Earlier this season, you would have heard me say that there was a point where I thought about no longer continuing this show. And one of the reasons was that I've never catered to the crowd. I've always done what I felt was entertainment that I liked to produce, bringing on guests that I was interested in or looked up to or respected. But there was a point with this specific show out of my 3 radio shows where I started to bring on guests that I necessarily didn't care for or like their work, but I was being requested from the fans, and I was trying to cater to them for the first time in my career of all of the projects that I've done over the years. And it got to me a little bit, and I decided, you know what, I don't know if I want to continue doing this. I decided I would continue, but I would change the format a little bit, only bringing on people that I respected and whose work I liked, and would no longer have on, requests unless it was someone that I appreciated or respected. Now, that has gone great so far this season. We've had on, this is our 8th episode this season, and we've had, and I'm counting tonight's guest as one of them, we've had 7 great guests. When I say 7 out of 8, the reason that is there was an individual who, produced and projected himself as someone very different than he actually is. And he has been discovered, found out as a con man and a snake oil salesman, stealing other people's works, plagiarizing them, and putting them out as his own, getting recognition and buzz, and probably even in some cases funding, because he does run GoFundMe accounts and things like that towards his organization. He was a guest on this season a few episodes back. I have since released a YouTube video exposing this man and what it is that he has done. So if you were listening out there, I ask you to go to my YouTube channel, search Knights of the Nephilim. You will find it. It's the most recent video other than tonight's episode, and look for it. Watch it, absorb it, share it with everyone that you know in the occult community, and expose this man for the exact vermin that he is. I will not stand for these type of people. As I said, I don't bring on con men. I don't bring on people I don't respect. I only had respect for this man because the things he were producing were very well thought out, written posts or examples of illumination. Well, that's because the people he stole them from were illuminated. He himself was not. And once discovering this, I have no support and will not let it go or slide. I will make sure that the proper people hear this and that it does spread like wildfire. So I will not bring it up again on my show or bring it up again in general, but I will make sure that the right people hear it and that it continues to be shared around the community. So if you're listening out there, please take your part in this, as we shouldn't let these type of people skate by. They should be exposed. Other than that, let's jump into the evening's topics and discussions. Before we start, I would like to thank my sponsors, Belladonna's Botanicals, Arsenosis, The Telemancer, Limitless Liberation, Goetic Impressions, and then our last sponsor, which is actually our guest this evening, which is Baron and Baronessa Araignee, returning back to my show. You know, fellow occultists, fellow friends, great practitioners and authors. We had an amazing episode last year at some point. I don't remember when in the year that was. I can look it up, but it's been, well over a year at this point. And we wanted to touch base because not only are they always working on things, but they've put out 2 new books since then that are very illuminating. And I think that you guys will love to hear about that. So let me tell you a little bit about them, and then we'll go ahead and jump into tonight's episode. Now, I did talk about our sponsors, and real quick, this evening we will take stops to listen to commercial breaks about each and every one of these sponsors, who they are, what they do, where you can check them out, and if there's any type of promo code, we'll go ahead and give it to you to help save you on your next order. Now, I'm reading the bio of Baron and Baronessa Araignee, our guest for the evening. They say that we are a husband and wife team, the founders of Araignee Arcane Services. We have over 33 years of successful practice. We have created Araignee Arcane Services to help those who cannot help themselves using the occult arts. We are adepts in all areas of witchcraft and necromancy, amongst many others. We offer our services to all those who seek it, and we do not discriminate against race, gender, or sexual preference. We take a no-nonsense approach on our occult workings, for we believe that there are many who are deceived by mundane practices. All of our divinatory works are highly accurate and detailed. All of our spellcasting services have been perfected throughout all of the years of our successful practice and is extremely powerful. All our products are handmade of the highest quality material and empowered through ancient rites. If you wish to know more about us or our business, or if you require our services, please contact us or visit our website, or in this case, listen tonight as we deep dive into who these two are, what they do, and why you need to know more about them. So join us, grab your ritual athames and put on your ceremonial attire, light your candles and focus your desire. Step into the circle and intone the sacred names, give offering and praise as we stare into the flames and we conjure the spirits that are Baron and Baronessa Araignee.
Locked behind that door.
Horror. No normal mind can imagine something even more terrible than you.
Now I'm a default friend. Like all quantities, horror has its ultimate. And I'm that.
There is a horror beyond yours. And it's in there. Locked behind that door.
Good evening, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to this evening's show. As I said during the intro, we are here this evening with Baron and Baronessa Araignee of Araignee Arcane Services, coming to us the whole way from South Africa. I appreciate them coming on from such a far distance and so late in the evening. My friends, thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Truly.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to talk to the two of you, and I know our fans out there are excited. I've gotten several messages on the ways I still can talk to people since I've been banned from most ways of promoting. But, my creative director has been getting messages. I have gotten messages by personal text and email of people excited to listen to this evening's show because they love what you had to say last time around, and they're excited to hear what it is that we're going to be talking about this evening.
Awesome.
Well, we're glad to hear about that, at least.
Oh, absolutely. No, people love your guys' work, and they certainly should. It's very powerful. And as you guys said in your bio and say quite often, it's a no-nonsense, no-bullshit approach. It cuts out the dogma. It cuts out all of the extra fluff that doesn't need to be a part of practice and ritual, and it just gets to the bare bones of the power and what to do. And this evening, we're going to be kind of taking folks a little bit of a different dive into that, because since we've last spoken together, these two have written two very powerful books that talk about finding your own empowerment, your own godhood that will eliminate the need of necessarily having to work with any other deity or source. You still certainly can, but why you don't have to and how it can be very powerful without having to. And we will certainly be talking about that this evening. One of the two books, the first of the two, I believe, would be Daemons, and a very powerful book, like I said, doing exactly what I just said, tapping into your higher consciousness, your higher self, and really using those energies. And then the second one was Liber Dei, which translation comes out to the Book of God. And it's the God within. So I don't want to speak any more of the subject because I would like these two to deep dive and jump into this. But, why don't you guys tell us, how these two books came about and a little bit more about them?
Well, we'll actually start at the beginning about that. For the listeners that may not know a lot of our personal path and practice, we can summarize it like this. We have been into black witchcraft, traditional witchcraft, necromancy, high magic, theurgy, most practices that you can think of. We've been there, done that, and we have mastered them all. And when we say we were zealots, we were fanatics in any of our practices, and all of them, we won't be lying. We were so dedicated that, and we still are in a sense, that everything that we do, our personal lives, apart from that, our business just so happens to coincide with our personal practices, everything about us, we live magic. We do not just practice it. But since then, we have, after all these paths that we delved into, I'll actually give this over to Baron because he is a little bit better with words like this than I am.
Yeah, as Baronessa said, that we were fanatics in our practices, especially on the field of the left-hand path, so to speak. And then eventually we started asking questions about this and that concerning our practices and the spirits we work with. And in all honesty, we looked at other practices, and then, as Baroness also said, we mastered these practices through initiation, self-initiation, etc., and so forth, and practical application. And then we took bits and pieces from each practice, not to name drop this or that, but we took the bits and pieces of truth from each practices, and then we formulated our own path, the hexagrammaton, from those truths. And here we are.
The thing about truth in this regard, what we mean by that is, in many practices, you will find that there are certain elements that seem to just work outright, regardless of anything, and certain elements which seem a bit redundant because it seems to serve no particular purpose, or it is a bit of a hit and miss situation. So we took all the elements from the paths and paradigms that we have practiced. We found the string of truth throughout all of it, everything that works, everything that coincides with each other. And hence this path regarding the path of hexagrammaton, which birthed forth all of the works such as Liber Dei and Daemon. It is the path of realizing God within. And that we will be speaking a bit about that tonight so that you all can get a little bit of a better idea about that, because unfortunately there's a bit of misconceptions about that as well. But that is it for us. That is our path. That is what we proclaim above any and all practices. That is what we want people to be aware of and at least to consider practicing, to consider even just knowing about.
Yes, and aside from the occult past that we delved into and mastered, we also looked at ancient religious beliefs, the core beliefs of these systems. And most religious beliefs, especially ancient belief systems, are a codex by itself. And through unlocking that codex, we discovered a lot of truths also, which we will be talking about tonight.
I think a very powerful thing from what you guys just said, it reminds me, there's a book by Aldous Huxley called The Perennial Philosophy, and I've mentioned it on the show before when similar topics have come up. And the reason I mention this book is he gets down to the fact that behind all of these different theologies and practices, there is a string of truth. There is the perennial philosophy that they all are based off of. Now, it's just the same person in different costumes, so to speak, and you can interact with it in different ways and different means, but at the end of the day, there is those common elements of workable power within each structure. And whether you're using that from a theoretical, mysticism standpoint, which you certainly can and can be powerful in itself, or you're using that in practice, as you two have mentioned with these two recent books, there is those pieces that work, and then you can cut out the rest. Doesn't mean that those other pieces aren't valuable in their own right, but if you can cut it down to the bare bones, like I'd mentioned earlier, you can take pieces from different practices. That's something I've always been a firm believer in. I would start posting different things or just mixing different things to my practice that sometimes people would question and say, well, you're a Satanist, or which I'm not, but I mean, you're a Satanist, and you mentioned scriptures and verses from the Bible, and we talked about this personally before, and I'd say, well, yeah, because even though I have nothing to do with Catholicism or Christianity, there is fruits of knowledge within those passages, and sometimes I actually invert it backwards from what the original meanings meant or how they're currently being used in my own ways. You can take a lot of those passages and use them just as effectively as a diabolist as you can a Christian. And it's because in the bare bones of it, there's those fruit seeds of truth. And I say that because just in the way of mysticism, as I said, that also translate in ritual that sometimes different practices, 6 very different practices, can all have the same structure that they're built off of, and you can use those structures and each piece of what works and what doesn't for you and create a very unique system that is extremely powerful. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's powerful for anybody else but you, because if you're getting the results, really, that's what we're all in for our own results. Now, what I will say about your guys' works is it's not just the results for oneself. It's working on a mass scale. People of all the different backgrounds can pick up your guys' books, work them, and have results from them. And I love that because you should make a coherent system. And with the Hexagrammaton, you've done that. I've read numerous of your books. I've been slowly working my way through all of them, but you guys write quicker than I can get through them, which is very impressive. But, Hexagrammaton is probably my favorite body of work that you guys have released.
Oh, well, thank you for that. We're glad that you enjoy it so much. The thing about realizing Godhood or self-ascension or ascension or however you want to call that, we're not saying that any other practices, paths, or paradigms are wrong or bad or whatever it may seem like. No, because as mentioned, we've been there, we've done that. Those paths, we've walked them ourselves. But what made us reach further and further and further still is, in all honesty, we're insatiable when it comes to the occult arts. We truly are.
Yeah. We love knowledge, to apply knowledge practically, and of course power, obtaining spiritual power. And
so with each paradigm, we would sit at the peak of that mountain, so to speak, and say, well, you know what? this isn't enough, this isn't it for us. Move further to the next one and the next and the next. And we can honestly say, personally, at least for us, and even from what we have heard from people like you and others that has practiced the Hexagrammaton and even Liber Day, that it is groundbreaking work for them, that they have applied it, even if it was just to take our work for a test drive, so to speak. And everyone just reports the best experiences, that even when they take little parts of those books and mix it in with their own practices, regardless what that may be, the results are astounding to them. And that is just a taste of everyone's true capabilities. Because since everyone has this inherent, we'll just call it the God self. It's just a nice general term for that. Everyone has that inherently. Everyone, even if you do not practice, even if you're just a normal, mundane person, everyone has that. That is the true you. That is the true self. So if you can tap into that, and, well, if we have to be honest, magic is probably one of the easiest ways to actually see tangible results of doing so, then the world is your oyster, truly.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the magnum opus of the occult is unlocking God within the self to live to your full potential as an individual, but not just in the occult world, but in the mundane world as well.
And yeah, we're saying it as if everyone is supposed to know this, but the thing which even we fell under, honestly, we can admit this, is why should you actually make the effort of coming to this realization and taking all this responsibility and power upon yourself if you can just quickly task something else to do it for you? And that's a vicious cycle, because then one tends to get stuck in that loop of, even though you are already capable of manifesting whatever desire you may have, you're so used to calling something else forth, calling forth a spirit or entity and telling them to do it for you. And then you stunt yourself in the process.
Yeah, except for using the spirits or working with the spirits as training wheels. Instead, it will become like a crutch to you.
Well, I think a lot of cases it does, and a lot of people listening right now are not going to like this next statement from me, but that's fine. I think that there's this ooky spooky taboo when you become a left-hand path practitioner, and obviously most of the listeners out there listening to my show are left-hand path practitioners of whatever various forms there are. Now, the problem with that is they come to the left-hand path because either that's what pulls to them, or they're trying to find a way to rebel against a lot of times what they were raised as, which is usually Christian or Catholic. As I said, that seems to be, a widespread thing, obviously, in the world, as it's one of the biggest religions, if not the biggest. And what I find is they'll rebel by following the same stream. And what I mean by that is, well, I don't want to follow right-hand path theology because they're constantly looking outwards instead of inwards, and they're always told to, instead of taking, acceptability of themselves, they'll pray to a God for forgiveness and also condemn that same God when something doesn't go right. I take responsibility, yada, yada, yada. That sounds great, and that's a good front for people to have that are on the left-hand path. The problem is most of the same fucking people that are saying that are full of shit, and they're not taking responsibility, because here's the thing. What are you doing if you never go through the process of spiritual alchemy and you are only calling outwards to deities and spirits to do your bidding for you? What happens when you are only calling upon material manifestation changes in life, money and riches and fame and all of these things, and you're not focusing on wisdom or ascension, but you're focusing on material objects and only calling outwards? You are literally doing the same exact thing as right-hand path followers. You are praying to something outside of you, asking for those things to bring you what you want. They sometimes will fuck your life up a little bit, as they do with any type of conjuration of spirit. They sometimes will throw roadblocks in your way, and some people accept that as just the side effects of that spirit. Others will be like, well, I don't know why he would do this to me when I called upon such and such spirit. At the same time, you're still looking outwards for everything instead of, as you two said, looking within yourself and finding that power. The essence of all your magic comes from you. You can work with other entities or spirits who will aid in that, but you don't necessarily have to. The root of your magic is your will, your focus and desire, and your inner godhood. The fractal of the Bornless One that each and every one of us are, though very few ever find it. As Baron said, that is the magnum opus. That is the ultimate goal. And if you go back in history and read any of the ancient tomes of people who actually knew what they were talking about, that is what alchemy is, folks. That wasn't transmitting lead to gold. That was taking the material, raw essence that you are, that low vibrational human being, and transmuting it to high vibrational consciousness, the spiritual gold. And people will talk about it. Even the same people out there preaching it, very few of them will ever actually do the practices and work it needs to get there. But that is the ultimate goal of a practitioner, because once you reach that, you don't need to ever call upon another spirit again. That's the adept level where you can manifest something in your life without even doing ritual. It'll manifest as quickly as you're thinking about it. 2 days later, all of a sudden it happens, and you're like, well, I never even took this into the circle, because you didn't have to. You've reached that level of godhood. You are manipulating and manifesting your reality in this matrix of flesh, and that's what we should be pushing for. The second thing I'll say is, and then I'll get it back over to you guys, is I think that another reason people work so much with spirits is that, pop culture taboo of it. Like, yeah, I can do it all myself without calling upon spirits, but that isn't near as badass as me telling people I've worked with 15 demons. And that's cool and all, man, but like, what is the point? If you're wasting all this time researching these spirits, conjuring these spirits, working with them, tempering yourself to their energies and frequencies, and having the good and bad side effects, all of those things to me would end up just being more of a distraction. Now, I am not saying I don't conjure spirits. I do. I always will. But I have been someone throughout any of my 3 seasons and any of the thousands of posts that once upon a time were on the internet before I got removed would talk about spiritual alchemy. That is the goal. That is the perennial philosophy. So thank you two so much for putting this out there in workings that people can learn, because it's important that more people discover this. Break away from all of this false information that's out there, all of these people out there preaching things they don't understand, and putting it in a practice that people can actually follow.
Well, you know what? You don't even have to thank us for doing that. We're probably going to end up doing that until these physical vessels of ours die, even though it's an extremely frustrating thing to try to really get into people so that they can at least just think about it for a minute, because we're not going to name drop or anything like that here. But then people say, or they will contact us and they'll ask us, but how can I achieve all of these things? And then we refer them to the books that we have written pertaining to it and say, okay, you want to develop yourself spiritually, you want to grow yourself spiritually, here it is. It's going to take effort. We will not lie about that. But if you see it through, you will not believe the results you will get. But then instead, they will settle for spell work. You see where we're going at with this? Even if some people know about it, it's like something inside them holds them back, maybe self-doubt, the negative ego, and so on and so forth. But it's so frustrating to us sometimes. But the people who we do reach with this, that actually take that leap, so to speak, we're proud of them for doing that. And, well, we can say that, I'm pretty sure that they're proud of themselves as well, that they actually did decide to pursue that path.
Yeah, indeed.
I think
after all, we're here to attempt to empower people, help those that cannot help themselves, and then initially teaching them how to help themselves so they can become spiritual titans.
Because the thing is we're not... Everything that we write, everything that we speak about, we're not doing that from a philosophy aspect of it or anything like that. No, we're doing it out of practical experience.
Yeah.
It's not something we read somewhere in a book and then we thought, hey, that sounds cool, let's talk about that. Or anything like that. No, it's something that we practice, and not just once or twice or for a week. It's something that we've invested ourselves into, and we saw results consecutively over and over and over again. And yeah, well, it's not just one of us, there's two of us as well. And then we both try it out. And if it works, well, then we talk about it. Then we can properly explain things, and we can properly instruct, because, well, we've been there.
Well, I think it's something to be said that all roads of power, all true roads of power, lead back to self. And I hate to go back to quoting scriptures and things here, but I love to do that. Jesus himself said the power or the kingdom of heaven is within you, and that's because it is. And people don't understand it. So as you said, people will come to you, they'll ask for help on something, you push them back to the book and say, read it, all the keys are here. Then they don't end up following it. And the reason why is fear. But let me explain that out there to the listeners. Not fear of working magic. People will overcome the fear of the boogeyman only to stay hidden away from the fear of themselves. What I mean by that is they'll work up enough courage to summon angels and to summon daemons and elementals and these different, currents that are out there. They will overcome that fear. But soon as you put a manual in front of them and say, this is going to give you the ultimate power, but in order to do that, you need to fully understand and learn yourself, forget about it. Most people will turn around and walk away from it because for some reason, whether it's something that's built into us at creation or it's something we form ourselves over programming, from children to adulthood, we are mostly afraid of ourselves. We can face others, no problem, but the minute we have to look into the mirror, that's when we see the real boogeyman and we don't like it. And that's why shadow work, or for those who are working the Sitra Ara and actually doing it properly, it's not all this fantasy shit that these people are writing about now. In the last 10 years, I've seen so many books come out about it. It became like this pop culture thing. But if you were actually working the Qliphoth and working that side of things, you will come into contact with darker elements of yourself and of this manifest world. And as you get imbued and work with those things, you will shed that. And there's different ways of doing it. I'm a big Qliphoth guy. As you're doing that, you will face those elements and you will face yourself. And there won't be that fear. And I can tell you guys, there's no greater accomplishment than to know who you truly are, to accept it, and to no longer hide or be afraid of it. And I am thankful to say that by no means do I say I've reached godhood, but I will say that I have learned who I am, and what I'm capable of, and I don't hide from it.
Exactly. That's the thing. Even we cannot say that we have obtained godhood yet, not even by a long stretch. But the point is that we've realized it. We're not hiding from that or shying away from that. And we can say that this path, as you mentioned, if you do it properly, well, we're going to say it is difficult because, or it can be difficult at least. The more you fight against it, the worse it's going to become for you. But even when in our initial, let's just say, stride over into the path of self-realization, some of the things that comes to you, it knocks you flat on your ass, with lack of better words, actually.
Absolutely.
It pulls the carpet right from underneath your feet, and then you just lie there and you're disoriented. You don't know what to do. You're absolutely stricken. And then after you get over that initial spiritual shell shockness, then you actually realize the full, or at least partly, the potential of what you have just uncovered and discovered about yourself and your capabilities.
Well, I think... Oh, go ahead, Baron.
Sorry. You also mentioned that removing basically things from since you were a child up until adulthood, and this fear and doubt and everything in regards to the path of godhood and ascension. That's actually a good point, because in the Hexagrammaton we also mentioned that you have to deprogram because that starts since the moment you can reason as an individual. So that will be since you are a child. Then your parents teach you things which they have been taught, and in turn it's just a vicious cycle of misinformation, and basically it comes down to brainwashing you. So you have to remove all that stuff in order to progress spiritually.
And what your parents don't do, social media and society does, and so on and so forth. It's just a mess.
Well, it is, and I've said this numerous times on not only my shows, but I've given lectures on this and things at paranormal conventions and things, where I look at a newborn child as a satellite dish, positioned perfectly, brand new, receiving a perfect picture of everything. This is before any interaction has happened. No saying any words, no nothing. The second that child is born, perfect reception. The problem is every interaction that we have with every single person and every single object is really just a stimuli of some sort that creates a change inside of us, and each one of those is a shovel of shit thrown on that satellite dish. It's gonna change the perception of that picture. It's gonna change how we see, what kind of visual comes through, and unless you are taking time for self-care and self-work to clean that satellite up, eventually it's going to be so caked that the picture is very, very altered, and we lose track of who and what we are. And in most cases, we all do to different degrees. But most people don't realize the strength that they have within and what they are truly capable of, because they're not taking self-care, aka scraping the shit off their satellite dish and getting back that picture. But for the people who spend time in meditation and spend time in ritual and spend time really, peeling back those layers of trauma and programming, those ones that do that, they get that picture again, and they're like, oh my God, I'm getting these tidbits of power, and I'm loving this. There's so much more. And some that are very adept will scrape that thing clean or very close to being clean and really get that picture. But for most of the rest, they'll never realize that once upon a time you could see perfectly. And it's just been clouded, because whether your parents or your grandparents or TV or any of that meant to, program you or cloud your clarity, that is exactly what they're doing. And religion is one of the biggest faults, because how many of us were born into a family of a certain religion or practice who are taught by our parents or our caretakers, who are taught by their parents and caretakers, taught by their parents and caretakers. It's generational programming and indoctrination. And that in itself is shackles and chains that'll keep you back from your power, because they teach you what to believe, how to believe, what you are, how to use it. And that's not correct. You should be the one that decides those things. And only when you take that back, you cut those fucking chains off, you throw them to the wayside, and you find your power, can you decide what is and what is not. And from there is growth. Now, the last thing I'll say before we jump into a quick commercial break is, back to my point earlier with people not wanting to do it. And Baronessa said about getting just knocked on your ass. I think that is essential. And the reason I say that, folks, is if you stepped into the boxing ring and every single time you just annihilated your opponent, you're never going to have a respect for the sport, because you never really got to experience the other side of it. But that first time you step in and your opponent just beats you, beats the fucking bricks out of you, you're going to have a whole new respect for it, because you get knocked flat. And as you're laying there on the ring, you're like, oh, wow, I wasn't seeing that coming, but that was a good lesson. I need to train harder, faster, stronger. And now I have a respect for what I'm up against, and you grow from that. So don't think that there isn't going to be bumps and bruises. There is, but also don't shy away from them, because those bumps and bruises are, in fact, essential to your growth. Now, hold that thought. We will be back right after these messages on Knights of the Nephilim Radio. Knights of the Nephilim podcast would like to thank our sponsor, Goetic Impressions. Goetic Impressions is a company dedicated to the faithful creation of advanced ritual tools by following grimoire guidelines as closely and as feasibly as they can in the modern world. Follow them on Instagram, Facebook, or their website, goeticimpressions.com, to stay informed on new projects and limited-time items that they roll out frequently. For listeners of Knights of the Nephilim podcast, you can use the promo code KOTN10 for 10% off of your overall order. Again, that is KOTN10 for 10% off of your overall order. And make sure you check out their Facebook, Instagram, and website. Once again, the website is www.goeticimpressions.com. Again, that is goeticimpressions.com for absolutely everything for your ritual needs. Fantastic items, quality items, greatly priced, quick shipping. Can't speak highly enough about these guys. Absolutely wonderful team, and I'm glad to have partnered with them. Thanks, guys. Knights of the Nephilim podcast would like to thank our sponsor, Arsnosis. Arsnosis was formed by Diogo Cels Pimentel, an artist located in northeast of Brazil in the state of Bahia, which is the birthplace of the greatest artist in the country. Involved with occultism since 2009, starting in shamanic practices until reaching Western occultism through the paths of Luciferianism, Thelema, Goetic ceremonial magic, angelic and Enochian magic. Since 2017, he has added his art of drawing and painting to magical artifacts, putting the energy of his practice and personal research into the artistic and magical works that he creates. With the auspices of the great King Paimon that governs over all arts and sciences, you can find his work by searching Arsnosis on Facebook and Instagram. It is theurgical work channeled into magical tools made by an adept for adepts. Over time, his work has become known throughout the globe for the care and energy of the will applied to each and every piece that he creates. And with the motto that was propagated in greater proportion by Aleister Crowley, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law," he applies the energy of the will of the initiatory path into each and every work. Once again, you can check him out by searching Arsnosis on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks, Diogo. All right, guys, we're back on Knights of the Nephilim radio show. We've been hanging out for the last 40 minutes with Baron and Baronessa Araignee from South Africa, the owners and operators of Araignee Arcane Services, author of I don't know how many books at this point, but I would definitely say at least 15, and they are very influential. We've had them on the show before, and this evening we are talking about unlocking your own godhood, spiritual alchemy, and really getting in touch with your higher self and your inner daemon. And, talking about their two recent books, Daemon and Liber Day, which both tell you and give you practices to be able to tap into those sources. And if you've missed any of the episode, don't fret. Listen to the end as it is live, and then once it finishes, you can go back and stream it from the beginning. I say listen to it a couple times, share it around to your friends, tell everyone you can about it. We appreciate it. If you hear anything that you would like to hear differently or see differently on the show, anything you want to see us do or not do, anybody you want to see us have on the show, make sure you drop us a line at celestialaddities@gmail.com. Again, that's celestialaddities@gmail.com. I answer everyone daily, so you will get a quick response. One of the only ways that you can actually reach me anymore, so I say to do it if you're trying to get in touch. And then other than that, as I said earlier, you can listen anywhere you like. But if you go through Spreaker, which is Spreaker, speaker with an R, you can go through the Spreaker app on the app market or through Spreaker.com. Not only can you listen to tonight's show, but you can actually talk to us right now live through the Instant Messenger feature. I'm sorry I forgot to mention that earlier for anybody who is listening out there. But if you have questions for our guests, want to leave comments, or just interact with the show, we always suggest it, and I will read them out online during the show. Other than that, guys, I wanted to kind of switch pitch a little bit here because you guys have recently accomplished a new accomplishment for yourself, and I would like you guys to explain to the crowd out there because I seen when we were exchanging emails back and forth for the show, there's a new title in front of both of your guys' names. So would you care to tell us a little bit about what you two have been up to?
Okay.
Well, in regards to that, it sounds like it's a bit of a humorous thing, but we'll get into that shortly. Both of us are now ordained ministers, so technically that's I am Reverend Vanessa LaRue and
I am Reverend Rainer LaRue.
And we also have our bachelor degrees in metaphysical sciences. We're currently busy on our master degrees, and then we are going to do our doctorates, but not just in metaphysical sciences, but also in a couple of other fields like comparative religion and so on.
No, that's awesome. I'm glad to see that you guys are following it not only on such a content level of the books and the workings and the ritual for hire that you guys are doing, but you're following it in an academic sense as well, and even more of a spiritual sense, I guess you could say, with the Reverend title. But that is great because another thing I'll say out there, folks, is there's a lot of fraudsters out there. And there's a lot of people that give themselves titles and aggrandizement and spiritual masturbatory titles that I am the high priest of Fuckville. And that's all it is. They have no backing behind that. And who I mentioned earlier that I recently made a video about, that would be the case there, as I don't believe there's any actual accreditation to that man's title. And I know that whenever I was involved with his organization in a very distant sense, that I was automatically given the title of tribunal priest. There was no ritual, there was no ceremony, there was no right to make me that. It just simply was, no, you're a priest. And I found that to be actually a red flag right there, but I pushed it to the wayside because, at least in my book and how I was brought up and how I believe in spiritualism, if I call myself a reverend or a priest, as you hear that I do, folks, it's because I actually am. And I, am honored to be, just as these two are as well. I don't really take kindly to someone getting into the occult and saying, I'm going to start a faction of some sort, and now I am a magus with 2 months into the practice, or I am now a priest because I just decided to call myself that. There is proper channels to do this, and I respect those that do it properly. So kudos to you two.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, it's not a small thing. I mean, you have to study, and then you have to take your vows and so on and so forth. And, well, yeah, so it's legit. We didn't just call ourselves Reverend, and sometime in the future we're not just going to be Dr. Reverends. No, it's going to be, it's official. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we still have to get used to those titles. It's just a bit weird for us still.
It is weird at first. I mean, that was like the first time I went through the process, officially became ordained, and I could use that title. I'm like, do I actually say it on the air or not? I'm like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to say it. So I started coming out and saying, like, I'm Reverend Frater Crow, and I had a few people reaching out to me and asking me. I'm like, no, I swear to you, I truly am. I would never say that, just out of turn. And it's grown on me since this point, and I embrace that because I do go out and speak to people, and I do give lessons and teachings, and I feel it's important that it should be from someone who lives this life. This isn't a hobby for me. This isn't something I do on the weekends. This is something that is stitched into the very fabric of my being, and something that I love for myself and my inner growth, but for others. And there are things going on behind the scenes that most don't know about, of going out and actually teaching classes and giving sermons. And I've done some of that in the past, but this coming year there will be several public speaking sermons where I go out and speak to a congregation and do sermons, preaching the word. It's just I'm not preaching the word of Jesus Christ, folks. So we're going a whole different direction with it, but I will be teaching nonetheless and preaching nonetheless, and it's an honor to be able to say that and be able to do that.
Awesome.
Before we continue on our side, we would just quickly like to touch on something that you mentioned before the break. A couple of times we discussed amongst ourselves, but say regarding brainwashing and indoctrination. So say one takes a child, a newborn, and you raise that child in a way that is completely free from indoctrination, completely free from any religious influences or anything like that, what would the product of that be? And honestly, this is many people might think that the product of that will be, perfect. Here you have someone who is unsullied by such issues that those topics may bring forth. But we present an alternative, which we actually believe may very well be the case. If you take someone and you completely remove all the negative influences from them, from this world and from life itself, and you completely isolate them from all of that, they will not fully feel or understand the weight of the knowledge that they will gain if they grow themselves spiritually. To them, it will just be, whatever. It will be like any other thing. They won't fully feel and understand the sheer gravity and weight of that power that they now have, because to them it's normal. They don't fully understand, or they never fully had to go through the struggles of having to filter through the bullshit and deprogramming and reprogramming yourself. So even some people even ask us that, and so only imagine if instead people could be raised without that. But then we would tell them, you know what, no, actually, that must be a personal step for each individual to take. And then after you've experienced all of the bad, all of the negative influences, and you overcome that, that is where you will fully understand what you're actually busy doing.
Yeah, the hero's journey, basically.
Well, it is. I mean, that's an obstacle, and that's a very tough obstacle. And I give my own personal, my own personal trials here. For a long time, I had practiced diabolism while still being slightly embedded in the roots of my upbringing and the dogmatic shackles that I had been, raised in. Even though I had long since before then decided that I cast away any elements of Christianity that I was raised with, and I had fully embraced the left-hand path and was even at this point doing pretty avid magical rites and summoning spirits and working with them, I still would catch myself from time to time having these flashbacks of teachings that I was taught. Where am I doing the right thing? Am I wrong? What if I'm wrong? What if I am going to, and here's the biggest one I think for people, and this was many years ago. What if I'm wrong and I am going to truly burn forever in hell because of the things that I'm doing? It sounds so silly now to me to even think or say these things, but for a very long time, these feelings, even though I pushed them away, would creep back in, and I would catch them, and I'd say, oh, you little fucker, get out of here. And I would try to cast it out again, and it would creep back in. It's because until you go one by one and take the work and time to pluck out every single root, it'll continue to try to grow. But once you remove them all, folks, that is the challenge, because as these two said, that is your journey. That is your obstacle to overcome. And you could say, well, I just wish I never had it happen to me. And okay, that's fine. But there's something to be said about breaking out of your own slavery. You were a slave at one point in time and you chose to become free, but free didn't come easily. You had to work for your freedom. And once you fully gained it, there's no sweeter fruit in the world than freedom. And you will have that. And it's only because you were chained that you can understand the taste of freedom.
Yeah, that is so true.
Exactly.
That is so true. And speaking of, let's just mention something on God, the inner God of each individual. Well, there's this new age thing going around that in regards to the God within that, each individual, the God within each individual is part of a greater whole, which some new age practitioners refer to as the source. Okay, and we just want to clarify that and just to reiterate that is absolute nonsense. There's no such thing. God within each individual will be as different from one person to the next, because we are all individuals, and thusly the God within each and every one of us will be different from one person to the next.
Exactly. And also another thing which we think that many people may struggle with when the word God is used is, since you say as well, and we agree with this, many people enter the LHP and even magic in whatever form it may be from a religious background such as Christianity and so on. So whenever they hear the word God, immediately they become so averse to it because they're thinking about the Christian God or whatever like that. No. That is not what God is. God is not this bright, shining, happy, turn the other cheek type of thing, nor is God an all-destructive fire that consumes everything before it. Mm-hmm. God is individualized, as in if you are more, let's just say, a more vengeful person and you're not really a very peaceful person and not very caring or kind or whatever, and if that is you, truly you, minus the brainwashing, minus all the bullshit from society and what life has thrown at you, you at your core, if that is your nature, then that is you as God. Then you will not be a peaceful thing, and no matter how hard you try then to become this alleged image of God, you will never be able to achieve that because that is not you.
I agree with that. And that does get very confusing and convoluted when you have a discussion because there's so many different pivotal points that you can come from. So like whenever you say God, you can be referencing something that the person you're talking to understand as their God. Let's say it's Yahweh in this case. When you say God, you're speaking as their God. But then there's also the definition of what you're saying is God, which is yourself, or it could be this source that people will talk about. So there's all these different points that someone can be referring to when they use the word God, and that's what makes it so hard, especially with when you start getting into Abrahamic religions, that they never really used a name for their God. Yeah, you can say Yahweh, but it's just referred to as God, whereas a lot of other religions would try to give it a name of some sort, so it wouldn't be so damn confusing. But when you're talking to a lot of Westerners and you say God, they're like, well, what are you talking about when you say God? Well, that's because you could be confusing it with a lot of other things. But you're correct. The God is within you. That is your God. That is what you strive to be. That is who you will be when you leave this flesh being. And I do believe there's a source, but not in the same sense that most people believe in the source. I would look at it as more of the thoughtless light. Whenever you start to look in the Gnostic perspective of, once again, the Klapoth side of things, where there was this, if you want to hit Kabbalism and say Ein, there was the void, there was the original non-being of being, and unfortunately there was the creation of this world. Now, I can say that this world is beautiful and you can learn how to master it while you are here, but this world, folks, to me is still a prison and is an abomination that eventually will be gone, and that will be a blessing. And people will hear that and say, what the fuck, Crow? Like, did you just say that being alive and earth and all of this is an abomination? Yes, I did. And I say that in two different contexts. I'm not saying that I'm a nihilist in the perspective that I want to see everyone die. No. I want to see people reach their godhood within and conquer this material world, to use it as your own tool of your desires in a proper way. And I say a proper way because you have a lot of Satanists out there that say just indulge as much as you want. No, there has to be order, there has to be equilibrium and balance, but one should delight themselves in the fruits of life. But at the end of the day, this is the training ground to reach that higher consciousness, that when you shed this skin, you can go on as that spirit, as that God, and you can then live as that spirit and God because you've reached that level. But if you don't reach it, you're not going to live as it, and you're probably going to return back. These are my own feelings. No one else has to agree with me on that. But at the end of the day, I am looking to return back to that thoughtless void light, or non-light, I should say, in the black diamond. And that is where I come from. So if people sometimes will ask, what is your thoughts on some of this, and I don't speak on it, tonight I have said I go with a very satanic, non-being, nihilistic / anti-cosmic perspective.
Well, something that actually relates to what you said about this world, which we totally agree on, by the way.
Yeah, definitely.
Where I'm going to sort of quote something. I don't have the exact references in front of me, of course, but it is from the Enochian Keys. It's something, well, D and LeVay, there's many versions of it. But there's one of them. I can't remember which one exactly it is, but this one, it always stood out. It's very lovely, actually, when you really think about the weight of this. Woe be unto the earth, for her iniquity is, was, and always will be great.
It's beautiful. And there's a lot of power within the keys there. And I mean, and I will tell people, I started to mess with the Enochian keys years ago. It was actually one of the first things I started to get into, because one of the first things that formed my path, was LeVay. Now, I tell people all the time I'm not a LeVayan Satanist. It comes up a lot in discussions. That's why I'm actually happy I'm not on most forums anymore, because the amount of ignorance within, especially the satanic community, is run rampant. Most of these people have no fucking clue what they're talking about. But he, that was where I first came across Satanism in the modern sense. And that was where I first came across the Enochian Keys and started to research that, and obviously led me to John D. and Kelly and all those, guys who were working them. And very powerful work, but I never stuck with it because it just never was really my path. But, that's kind of led me onto my path the whole way along to what I was just saying, where I believe that this is a stomping ground. This is a training ground, and doesn't mean that you have to hate it. You can very much love it and love being here, but the end goal shouldn't be to want to be here, and it shouldn't be to want to come back. It should be to break free of this, but while you're here, to master it, and go from slave to slave master, and then I mean slave master of yourself, not of others. And like I said, I don't expect anybody else to believe that. I'm glad you guys believe something similar, and I know a lot of people don't, especially when it comes to the anti-cosmic Satanism shit. They're like, what the fuck, man? And I just, like I said, I could give a shit if anybody agrees with that, but that is the point. And there's so much misconception, and I always make fun of the satanic groups, which most people would say, why would you do that? Just because, like I said, you have two very different sides. You have the side that's everybody, it's just me. So you have those atheistic Satanists out there who are almost saying the right thing with the wrong texture. They're saying, like, there is no other spirits and it's all just me. But they're not saying it in the sense that we are here tonight, people. They're just saying, like, I'm just my own God and I'm a badass. That's what you catch a lot of them being. And then you have the other side, oh, no, it's all spirits and everything's spirits and it's all needs to be... What if there's that middle ground between that? And I talk about it often.
Speaking about equilibrium.
Yes, equilibrium. Yeah, that's it. It's balance, and people don't get that. It's all or nothing, and it's like, no, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that it's all other spirits and you don't have any power and it's all theirs. It doesn't have to be that all the power is within me and there's nothing outside of me at all and no existence. It can be that there's very much both, but your point is to work with other spirits until you find enough power to find that gold within you, and once you find it, you become your own God and you master your own universe. And I think that's like the hidden piece that most people, as you guys said earlier, don't seem to understand. It sounds so simple, but most people just either don't want to do the work to get there, or they overlook it because it's so simple, it's so in their face that they think it's hidden.
But that's the whole point, just as you said it, because we cannot say that where we are currently, we too on our current spiritual path as we are right now sitting here, we cannot proclaim that we got to this point all by ourselves with no help from spirits, entities, deities. We cannot say that because we would be fucking lying, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
We are where we are because along our way, we've had intelligences assist us. We had them guide us, teach us. And then at the same time, we had them messing us around and taking chances and so on and so forth. But that's the point.
That's how you learn and grow.
Well, and you know what? I would like to ask you two a question, because it is something that popped up in my mind here, because we talk about it, and this is kind of a weird perspective, but you two have written 2 books that'll teach people how to necessarily not have to work with spirits and go that route to what we know now, obviously, is the ultimate goal and key. Yeah. And we're trying to save people, or you guys are trying to save people work by being able to go this route. But myself included, and you guys included from what you just said, couldn't have reached this gnosis and knowledge without the working with other spirits. So do you think it's possible for someone to fully absorb the message of the 2 books that you guys have written and grow from that and tap into that good godhood? Say they're a neophyte starting out now in that. Would they be able to have the same success as we do working those workings without working with other spirits? Or do you think they have to go through that fucking stomping ground of lessons to truly absorb the message? They can work it without, but do you think they'll ever be able to fully capture it without going through the trials of working with all those other currents?
That's actually a very, very good question, that. And the answer to that, the core answer would be equilibrium as well. You can practice that which we teach. However, you must be tempered by these spirits or these energies as well at the same time to fully understand and appreciate the path of godhood.
And even so, even if, say, someone decides they're only going to follow what we have written and they're not going to, for that time being, even attempt to call forth any spirit or entity, granted, that's fine. It will serve them well as well. But, and we are actually so confident about this, we will bet on this, that even if they pursue those paths, inevitably they will want to call something forth. Inevitably, it's just a fact of life. eventually they will want to, maybe speak to a specific entity which they feel drawn to or something like that. They will end up in the stomping ground eventually, but maybe just the other way around. Instead of starting at the stomping ground, then working their way up to mastering themselves, it may even be inverse then. But the point is, that's just going to depend on individual to individual. We cannot really say as it's going to work for everybody this way or that way. As long as the information is readily available to anybody, then, it's their choice how they want to approach this. Because we've had people who started taking up the hexagrammaton and libidae from us, and they asked us to properly teach us the concepts therein, and they were already working with or deeply in their own path with entities and spirits and stuff. But then as soon as they encountered our works, they literally just dropped whatever else they were doing, because then they realized, no, listen, now this is what I want. I want to do self-work. And then also we've personally encountered the other way around as well with people. Then they would start with hexagrammaton as an example, and then they decide, okay, you know what, they're going to try to integrate this with maybe calling something forth. And the results, either way, is still amazing to them. So,
I think they each give keys to the other, and they can be integrated in different ways, as you guys said, because if you're working with a lot of spirits, and I've said this time and time again, I think it's a one-to-one counterpart. You work with spirits who give you a key to yourself that will unlock higher levels of yourself, which then in return by doing so will give you more power and more understanding the next time you summon either that spirit or another spirit. So you are tapping into their essence to tap higher into your own, to tap higher into theirs or another's, and so forth. But on the reverse vice versa end of that, the same thing can be said. You start working out simply on yourself and have never called upon a spirit, and you get that inner work done. You have now been given a key to open up a higher level of connection right from the start, and the latter still will continue. They give you another key, which gives you another key. It goes back and forth. It has to be, once again, folks, we can't stress it enough. The word of the night is equilibrium. That is what has to be done. You have to balance the pillars. That's why you hear about the ritual of the middle pillar, because there are two pillars, and the only way you can really reach that top consciousness is to balance them out so that everything weighs off of one another. And that's a very powerful message. Now, when we come back here in a couple minutes after these commercial breaks, there's two more topics I want to talk to these two about this evening before we finish up. One we talked about last episode, but I want to bring it back up for certain reasons, and that is the Black Book of Bel-El Hall. And then the other one is going to be touching basis concerning this topic tonight, but concerning that mixed with the act of necromancy. So we will be right back after this on Knights of the Nephilim Radio. Knights of the Nephilim podcast would like to thank our sponsor, Araignee Arcane Services. Araignee Arcane Services is a husband and wife duo comprised of Baron and Baronessa Araignee. With over 40 years of practical experience, they are masters of the occult arts through various practices and paradigms, such as necromancy, high magic, black witchcraft, and more. They are published authors under their own publishing house, the Arcane Press. They offer books, courses, spell work, consultations, ritual tools, and more. All of their products are handmade of the highest quality material and empowered through ancient rites. If you wish to know more about them or their business, or you require their services, please feel free to contact them at AraigneeArcaneServices.com. That is Araignee, ARAIGNEE, ArcaneServices.com. And if you use promo code KOTN, you will get 10% off of your overall order or purchase as a special highlight of them being a sponsor of this show. Thank you so much, guys. Knights of the Nephilim podcast would like to thank our sponsor, Limitless Liberation. I'll read you about this wonderful company from their owner, Elena. Limitless Liberation was inspired by both Lucifer and Belial. Lucifer has been with me most of my life, as far back as I could remember. Belial and I started to work when I was going through a very difficult part of my life. He completely turned mine and my family's life around for the better in a very short period of time. In return, he asked me to create what he called Charger for him. He showed me the designs, so I created the first Charger for Belial, and Lucifer wanted one next. From there, I had spirits lining up with requests for magical items. Some are control freaks, while others just inspire. They are all so individually different, but every single item created has power within it. Each item operates on many levels. They operate as an anchor for the spirit you're working with, thus aiding easier connection between the two of you. They also operate like a power cell or battery, where they already come with an inherent energy to them, but they become stronger as you feed them and pull from them during ritual, as well as to strengthen your workings. Limitless Liberation continues to grow to honor the spirits that we love to work and build relationships with. You can check her shop out at etsy.com/shop/Limitless Liberation. Again, that is etsy.com/shop/Limitless Liberation. All right, guys, we're back on Knights of the Nephilim Radio. We've been hanging out with Baron and Baronessa Araignee for about an hour and 10 minutes. We have about 20 minutes left of the show. Still got some deep diving content to jump into. But before we do, I do want to thank the sponsors that we've already showcased this evening, which would be Limitless Liberation, Goetic Impressions, we got Ars Gnosis, and we got Araignee Arcane Services, which the Araignees are on the show tonight. We still got two more coming for you, and we'll play those towards the end of the episode, which would be the Telemancer and Belladonna's Botanicals, so stick around for that as well. All of the sponsors are great, phenomenal companies. Make sure you check them out, buy stuff from them, support them. As I always say, you are the lifeblood that keeps us all doing what we do and how we do it. So thank you very much, and continue to support. Now, we've been talking about ascension, spiritual alchemy, we've been talking about inner godhood, and much, much more this evening. And I want to relate that into one of the things that these two are known for more than absolutely anything, and it's because they are true adepts of this art form. My favorite subject, my favorite content and practice, which is the grand art of necromancy. Something I would tell most people never to get involved in, but if you truly have a passion for it, then these are the people you want to go to and learn from. It is a beautiful practice. It is dangerous, but it is very fruitful, and I put it above all else. So I would like to ask your guys' opinion. Obviously, as you said, working and finding out your inner godhood can help you with working with spirits and spirits back and forth, kind of back, one-to-one counterpart, as we said right before the break. And I was associating that more with working with elementals and more with working with chthonic beings or planetary or celestial beings. But I want to kind of segue that separate from working with the spirits of the dead or the grand spirits of the dead and ask you your guys' opinion on that. Now, I know with such a heavy background in necromancy, with your practice changing over the years, especially of the last couple, has that taken away from your practices of necromancy, or has it only really enhanced it as far as what the two of you do?
Well, actually, it has enhanced it. Not to boast or not to sound arrogant or anything, at the point where we are now in our spiritual development, we don't need to go through rites or any specific rites of grand necromancy to bring forth a spirit. We, for lack of better words, we simply pull the spirit to where we are in our reality just by mere will. So in that manner, it has changed greatly.
And even so, the spirits who we would speak to, per se, they're not, as we would call them, the garden variety dead anymore. In that regard, we're a little bit beyond that. We will do that, say, for clients or something like that. But now it's like moving a little bit further up on the food chain, if we can put it like that. If we have to speak to anything related to necromancy, any intelligence related to that subject, it will not be even a psychopomp anymore.
No.
We're talking way up the line right now. So, and it's, again, we're not trying to be boastful or anything like that. Everything that we're saying here, we can prove gladly without issue. But that's just how far it enhances our practices. I mean, before, you have to go through a whole process to call forth even a garden variety spirit. But for us, no, not anymore.
Yes, and if we can do it, anybody else can do it if they set their mind to it.
And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, is once you reach that level of true adept, you can make manifestation happen without the need to have to perform a official rite. And I was saying that in any type of rites, but I love to hear that specifically in the art of necromancy, because as you said, you're working with energies up the line, that you're skipping past just the spirits of casual dead, and you're working with the essences of death itself. And I can tell you, folks, and I will attest to this, and I've told the Araignees this before, there is nothing that comes to, ahead of that for me when it comes to my occult practices. Is necromancy is number one, and then any type of other practices is behind that. And I was doing one of their rites from the Gospel of the Ghouls, which is one of their several books on necromancy, a very powerful tome. And I had one of the most powerful experiences of my entire life, and I have worked pretty avidly on all of the things that I do, but I had been working with the current of death. And I met him face to face, and it was a life-changing experience. And at that point, and this was a couple years ago or so, and when it stepped into my temple, the entire environment changed, as it often does, but never like this. And I became what felt like, death itself. I felt the current. I felt ill. I had to push through the illness to be able to saturate myself with this resonance. And I had one of the most powerful experiences of my life. And I am glad to say that I did, and glad to say that my life has never been the same since that night. And I had studied all of these topics and workings for years, and it wasn't until I came across the Araignees and started digging into their work that I had experience with necromantic rites at this caliber. And it has only thrown me so much deeper into what it is that I do now, which I don't much speak on. And I'm glad to say that thanks to you two, it has changed my practice, it has changed my power, it has changed my outlook and pivot on everything that I do, so thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's all about self-empowerment, man.
And actually, it's funny that you mentioned death, actually, because some time ago, we spoke to you, I think a couple of months ago or something like that. And then we said, we're entering a new phase in our personal practices, and it's just been absolutely phenomenal. But here's the thing that we didn't exactly, say to anyone, really, but which pertains to death. We felt a little bit stuck at that point in time, a couple of months ago. We felt that it's like, a bit of a hindrance, but nothing from a spiritual perspective or anything, but it's more personal thing where, okay, we've gotten this far, but we're not sure what direction we must go into from here on. We know we must go in some direction. We know we must do something, because this cannot possibly be the epitome of it all. This isn't the end of the journey. We're not even halfway through the beginning yet. And we did what we usually do if, we personally have searched ourselves and we truly do not know the answer. We don't know what to do. We spoke to death, Rex Mortis, about that. We're like, okay, what should we do? And we know that probably sounds very almost lessening death by saying, we asked for advice. But no, actually, it's not lessening death, as a matter of fact. Death is, that's actually a very, 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 very big subject, but nonetheless. And we explained our situation. We said, okay, you know what, just if you would, could you just please give us some direction? Because truly we don't know what to do. And then Death, in his, we say his, but you know what we mean, in his casual, nonchalant-ish type of way, instead of telling us what we should do, and giving us instructions and so on, he picked us up like little puppies by our scruffs and threw us in the right direction. And that's when the change of course per se happened to us. No, not the spiritual ascension change, of course. No, that's just a new facet of that.
Yeah, and we when we came to our senses, we didn't know where the fuck we were, where death threw us into. But then when we realized that, we were quite very much grateful.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I had a similar experience, but in a different type of way. I had done the same thing. I had summoned the spirit of Rex Mortis, the current of death, and through your guys' workings and advice, and had asked the same thing. Lead me to what is next. What is next for me? And like I said, I think this was roughly about maybe 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago, and I said, show me what is next. What is the next chapter for me? I am ready for the next chapter, but I don't know where to go with it. I felt kind of stuck myself. Now, he had taken me on a wild roller coaster ride. It was like he picked me up and threw me fucking head first into a brick wall of chaos. But at the same time, I am a firm believer that sometimes chaos has to happen. You have to walk through fire to get tempered like a fine blade. And that is exactly what happened. I found myself losing myself. I found myself becoming obsessive about bones. Now, I've always been into bones. I am an Oddities collector, but no, I became absolutely bonkers for bones. I mean, it was like that's all I thought about, all I could do, and which sounds like, okay, that's not a good thing. If you're becoming obsessed, that means you're not balanced or have equilibrium, as we were talking about earlier. No, I think it was the exact opposite. I had to lose myself to find myself. And in losing myself, I certainly did. It built up a great collection for myself. It helps in my current workings that I'm doing now, so it was an additive there. It got me more accustomed to death in a way that I wasn't before, and a knowledge that I didn't have before. But then I also had to break myself free of that obsession, and it was almost like I had broke a trance. Once I had broken it, that obsession fell away very quickly. I went back to myself, and I almost stood beside myself and said, what in the fuck was that, Crow? Like, what just happened to you? And then it took me a little while to really understand, and I'm like, oh, wow, what is next? Well, he showed me what was next. He took me on a roller coaster, and I learned a very valuable lesson from it, but I also built up the tools that I needed for the furthering of my practice. And it just was very, very interesting, and it led me to where I'm at now. So, I believe that there really is no more powerful teacher than death itself. And it can be a scary ride, but it can be a fruitful one. But there's a question I would like to ask you stemming from this. And, there's people all over the world that summon daemons and demons and different spirits of different backgrounds and religions, just like there are necromancy. But let's pull that back for a second. I don't think there's really many cultures in the world that are more powerful or that can say they don't stem from the necromantic arts of Africa. Whether it be Quimbanda, whether it be Palamayombe, whether it be the Yoruba tribes working with the Orishas and different aspects, whether it be Santeria, all these different things that stem from the African diasporic traditions, it all really stems back to where you two live and have lived. So I ask you this question: do you think that you would be where the two of you are in your necromantic practice if you lived in any other country or continent in the world?
Well, that's actually, it's a good question, but it's a bit of a funny one. We're smiling as we're sitting here right now. We're happy to be where we are. We're proud to be South Africans. We truly are. We're proud to have been born here. It's a place to get used to, but we're just happy. It's a blessing of Africa, shall we call it? But knowing us, yes. We would have still gotten this deep into necromancy. We still would have gone through all of the paths. We still would have done everything and still be exactly who we are today, no matter where in the world we would have been born or lived or whatever.
Yeah, like we always say, we live and breathe the occult. It's just a part of who we are.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, because let me tell you from my perspective, and I believe you two when you say that, because you two have a very strong passion and will for what you do, and it's very admirable, and you don't come across that level of dedication and just resonance that you actually feel when you read the work and when you just talk to you two. So that's why I have always, very much enjoyed our time together. But one of the things I will say is, if you read anybody else's necromantic works from America or from some of the other countries out there that are not of African origin, you don't see the workings coming out like you guys do. I see that in some of these other faiths and backgrounds that stem from that. But when it comes to like American writers, or it comes to Canadian writers, or some of the other, backgrounds here, I've read some of their books on necromancy, and I'm like, this is horseshit. And I had followed some of the different paths of African necromancy and working with the dead and enjoyed it. And then I came across Juju, like I said, and read it, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, I love this, and this is the first time I've come across someone that I've truly resonated with their work. So I do believe that you would have gotten just as deep anywhere you lived and would have just the same amount of power in your practice. It is funny to see that you guys are in Africa, because I feel that is where some of the most powerful practices have come from well, and I'm glad that whether you were there or not, you were able to carry that with something that is very unique to the Araignees.
No, well, thank you for that. One thing we can say about all the African-based necromantic fields is, one of the many things actually that would separate it from other variants of necromancy, shall we call it, although necromancy is necromancy, whatever, but still there's a bit of differences. One of the main ones we will say are the spirits you will encounter, and we're not talking about the garden variety spirits. We're talking about the more developed ones. We're talking about the psychopomps, we're talking about the ascended dead, and so on. If anyone is say practicing necromancy already, or has been interested in perhaps broadening their horizons in regards to this particular subject, we would actually suggest, if they haven't already, that they try to contact one of those from those pantheons, because you will not find necromantic spirits of the higher or psychopomp variant that is more colorful or active
or
visceral or opinionated. We can actually guarantee that.
I agree. I think that's a strong word of advice there, folks. And it's something, as I said, tread lightly if you're wanting to get into this field. But if you have a passion, you are strong within yourself, I think that it is a fruitful and powerful field. And recently, I have certainly taken steps myself to up where I am within that field. And I look forward to the journey. I know it'll be a long, hard road, but it is something that I am very excited about and passionate about. Now, before we finish up for this evening, I want to jump into one last piece of conversation, and then we can wrap up for the night. But that is the Black Book of Belial Hall. Now, I want to bring this up specifically because the workings within this book are, I don't even know what words to put it, are dark, but they're also extremely visceral and powerful, and from a different perspective than most. And again, just like working with Rex Mortis, is something that I only speak of my personal accounts. Working with Belial Hall is not an easy journey. It's not something that's going to hold your hand. It is something, as I said earlier, that's going to throw you through a brick wall, but busting through that wall is going to be where you find the lesson and the power. And I know that was a subject and a current that you two worked with avidly for a very, very long time, and I would imagine still do, and had produced what I feel is just an extraordinary book of magic. So can you guys speak a little bit about that for our listeners out there this evening?
Yeah, well, every single spirit we make mention of in the book, we worked with personally for quite some time. And the path of what Belial as revealed to us in the book is, as you've mentioned, is extremely visceral, and it is not for the faint-hearted, so to speak.
Indeed. And out of all of the books that we have available, that alongside Gospel of the Ghouls, Volume 1 and 2, our books on necromancy, that is probably the most popular book we have ever written by far. And yes, we're happy with that, but at the same time, you get the most amusing emails, shall we say, of people that ask us, okay, would we recommend that they get the book because this is their path and so on, and then we will advise them in accordance, but then they would get it, and then they will contact us back and say, okay, how can they respectfully dispose of this book, because it's...
In essence, it started scaring them.
It started scaring them, to put it very mildly right now. And that's the thing. The book, the Black Book of Belial Hall, it's it has become quite notorious. We must say that.
I mean, one of our other clients, somebody who purchased the book from, I believe it was Brazil, this person just made use of the rites and rituals within the book without following the instructions in the book.
Oh, that guy.
And this person's life got torn apart. Literally, his life got turned upside down. Everything went terribly wrong for him. We doubt that person is even
still alive. Because he took basically, think about 10 plus spirits, or 10 plus of those spirits listed in that book, and he just smushed them together.
Without even following
proper instructions.
I talked to Delamin Ra, who is an Ifa priest in Nigeria, and he works with a lot of different currents and things as well. And we had made the analogy that working with, all the spirits, but certain spirits is equivalent to electricity and being an electrician. And you have people who will learn how to do that properly, and they can use that electricity as a amazing gift to accomplish so much that obviously you can see all around you. We're using it right now. Or you can use it to harm and to kill. Or you can use it carelessly and just stick your fucking fingers in the fuse box and die. And the problem is there's a lot of people that just stick their finger in the fuse box. So like this gentleman you're mentioning, I'm going to throw a bunch of this stuff together, follow no structure or practice to it, and just do what I want. And what people don't realize is there are a rhyme and reason for things being laid out a very specific way in most all practices, but especially the Black Book of Belial or Black Belial. It is, and the funny thing you said about people being terrified of it is a terrifying book, and I say that myself. Now, I don't run from terror. I embrace it because there's something to be learned there, but it is terrifying. The spirits within this book, if not respected, if not conjured properly, if not worked with properly, will absolutely destroy you. And that's not like this gloomy thing that we're throwing out there, folks, to make the book spookier, to have you go out and buy it. I actually say that most of you shouldn't buy it, and that's to the detriment of the pockets of Baron and Baronessa Araignee. Obviously, I normally would tell you, go out and give them your money. We want them to be supported. I am saying the opposite tonight, folks. This is for people, as I said, just like the Gospel of the Ghouls 1 and 2. These are practices that you must respect with every fiber of your being. This isn't something you're going to jump into and work for a week or two and then throw it to the side and expect it not to have consequences. This isn't something that you're going to start to work with and then throw it aside and just say, what's the next thing? I want to do everything for 3 weeks, and then what's the next thing? These are practices that in themselves can be your practice for the rest of your life, and they should be respected as such. You might read it, decide it's not for you, and walk away. Okay, but if you begin the process of practicing them, you should do so very, very carefully with a load of respect and follow it to a T. And it will bring about results that you cannot imagine. But if you fuck up or disrespect it, it will bring upon results that you can't even imagine. So let that kind of drive itself home, folks. Other than that, I think that is a great place to stop this evening. Baron and Baronessa, any last words or anything else you want to present to the listeners out there before we close?
We can actually give you and your listeners a heads up on one of the books we're going to write following up. It's Pazuzu, on the subject of Pazuzu. It's his book.
Yes. And the reason I say that is, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I have been an avid poster about Pazuzu long before you started seeing a lot of other things come out about it. That is, so I hate to beat a dead horse. That is one of the forces that, just like Belial, is extremely fucking powerful, and it can fuck your shit up. Yes, so that is the most exciting news I've heard in a while. So I'm sorry to jump in on you saying that. I just got very fanboyish there, and was very excited to hear that.
No, it's all right. It's all right. It's like, how we can describe it is if the Black Book of Belial is dedicated to Belial, then obviously it's going to be like that, but instead of Belial, it's going to be Pazuzu.
I can imagine, because The only interactions that I have had have been immense. They have been pretty dark, but not necessarily dark in a way that was scary. So let me say that real quick, folks. The work I've done with the Black Book of Bell Hall is it's been pretty dark and treacherous, but it's been fruitful. The work I've done personally with my own methods with Pazuzu has been very dark and powerful, but not dark necessarily in a scary way, just immense. The amount of just overdrive energy that was in the room is just amazing, but very, very enthralling, if I can say that. Something that just wanted me to get more. It was like, wanting to just jump headfirst into the pool and start swimming. And I am very excited to see what the hell you two bring out on that and what kind of workings, because I have actually got other practitioners out there who are followers of the show to start working with Pazuzu years ago. There's one girl individual that has become her main practice. That is all she works with and the only spirit she works with. She is specifically an adherent and disciple of Pazuzu, so that's great.
Well, we're glad that we chose to announce that, at least here, and we're glad that it's, well, the fanboy response, we must say. that's very nice to hear.
I get excited over my occult workings. Anytime I can read something that I'm truly adamant about or practice something I'm truly adamant about, I get very excited. As I said, just as you two are, this isn't something I just do here and there or on the side. My life, aside from my family and my career, this is all I'm doing. All I'm doing is reading and practicing every second of the day that I'm not with them or working. And that's a dedication. Not everybody can do that, I understand. But I know you guys do, and I certainly do. I live and breathe ritual and occultism. So when I hear something that I love and I'm passionate about, there's nothing that gets me more exciting. I mean, that to me is my vacation. That to me is my, scratch off winning the lottery right there. When I get that new book of power and I can work its processes and pick the fruit from the tree, so to speak, there's nothing better.
Well, that's great to hear.
And it's always good to speak to a fellow dedicated occultist, like you.
Yes.
It's always a pleasure.
Well, thank you. I still have so much to learn, as we all do, and I'm always learning more and more and more. But it's been a very fruitful path for me since the very beginning. I've gone through many accomplishments and many, many more failures. And like I said before, I'm a firm believer that the failures make the accomplishments taste even better, but they also teach you something that the accomplishments can't. So here's to us on continuing to learn, to grow, and to plant those seeds out there with people that are listening this evening and who will listen down the road. There is real occultism out there, folks. There is real power out there. You just have to decipher amongst the bullshit to find it. And I will always do my job to try to give you the best seeds of knowledge and power. But even every once in a while, you'll have a fuckface that slips in, like I mentioned at the beginning. And real quick, I had someone during the show that heard that, went and watched the video apparently, and left a comment saying they are absolutely disgusted and they were a follower of this asshat, and now they are not. So another victory for us. Spread the word out there. Other than that, make sure you go to Araignee Arcane Services website, pick up their books. If you need ritual work, make sure you hire them. They do wonderful workings. And there's a lot of free content on their website right now. I seen the other day when I was looking that they're giving out some of their papers and things that they have done over the years that you can download for free. So go check it out. Great stuff for you. There's an endless stream of knowledge there. Other than that, I want to thank each and every one of you for listening this evening. And we will catch you in 2 weeks. Hold on one second. I had it up and my phone shut off. 2 weeks we have... Dun, dun, dun. We have Harold Roth, who recently wrote a new edition of The Sword of Moses, retranslated accurately from the older versions, which were not, that had a lot of errors in it. I have it upstairs. I read most of it. I haven't finished it yet. It's very good. Not something I personally practice myself, but one of those things that I'm very interested in. If you don't know about The Sword of Moses, it's an endless stream of Hebrewic characters that they don't exactly know what it was used for. It's just pretty much gibberish, but it is said to be able to accomplish anything you really want to by using it if you can pronounce it all, but it's like 900 characters long, and I have not attempted it, probably never will. Not really my bag, but something I still appreciate, and I look forward to talking to Harold about this, and also his involvement with working with, witchcraft plants and baneful plants, which will be next episode, and that is on Thursday, December 1st. So we'll catch you in 2 weeks here on Knights of the Nephilim. In the weeks between, we will be talking about paranormal content on Celestial Oddities, the Pair of Normal Guys, so don't miss it. And we'll catch you next time. Baron and Baronessa, always a privilege.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you for all the listeners.
Yeah, thank you all very much.
Thank you, guys, and we'll finish out with these last messages from our sponsors here on Knights of the Nephilim. Have a wonderful and safe night, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
Knights of the Nephilim podcast would like to thank our sponsor, the Telemancer. Let me first tell you a little bit about their owner, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about them. James Hunter Ralston has been a member of the Order of the Voltec, starting in 2008 and progressing through several degrees, last serving as head of the Outer Order. The Order of the Voltec is an offshoot of a pylon of the Temple of Set, originated to study and practice several forms of the sorceress methods centering on techniques used by Mexican and other Central American priests and magicians. Many of the techniques involved were popularized in the late 1970s and 80s by Carlos Castaneda. Over the decades since his first experience with magic, his desire has grown into the creation and use of what other shamanic sorcerers term as power objects, talismans, amulets, totems, and other powerful objects. His interests expanded to the degree that he chose to become an apprentice of several Appalachia's premier craftspeople and learn the art of metalcraft to produce power objects for both himself and select patrons. He does work with gold, pewter, silver, and sometimes other metals as well. He has been doing this for over 8 years. He does create talismans, pendants, rings, altarpieces, and more, almost all exclusively by custom commission. And you can check out his stunning work at facebook.com/thetelemancer1. Again, that is facebook.com/thetelemancer1. All as one word. Thank you so much. Knights of the Nephilim podcast would like to thank our sponsor, Belladonna's Botanicals. Belladonna's Botanicals is owned by Jennifer Vatsa, a left-hand path and poison path witch, certified aromatherapist, herbalist, perfumer, skincare formulator, and incense crafter who designs and has created a massive product line consisting of over 300 products, with new ones being released every month. Belladonna's Botanicals provides high-quality, handcrafted metaphysical and self-care products, including flying ointments and oils, herbal tinctures and elixirs, herbal smoke blends, ritual oils, powders, incense, radionically charged crystals, ritual bath products, fragrances, and bath and body products. Jennifer draws inspiration from the spirits she works with, and they often have requests. Anecdotally adding that as she was creating her product lines for the dark goddesses and demonic gatekeepers, that King Paimon showed up requesting his own product line as well. She often directly channels what they would like to be included in their products, in addition to her own ritual workings along with known correspondences. She also has a popular left-hand path-oriented YouTube channel where she posts content on everything from podcasts with other occultists to her gnosis from working with different spirits and various topics pertaining to her craft and creations. You can check out her product line at www.belladonnasbotanicals.com. Again, that is belladonnasbotanicals.com. Or check out her videos on YouTube by searching her name, Jennifer Vatsa. That is Vatza. Thanks, Jen.